Hi, it's Winston from Live Wild, and today we're doing a review of this. This is the Silky Accel 21, which is a folding saw with a 210 millimeter or about 8.5 inch blade. Super big teeth, really comfortable handle. So stay tuned and see how she works. So a great thing you're going to run into with the Silkies is I get mine with large teeth. It just takes a lot of wood with each stroke. We've got a standing dead tree here. We're actually going to process it down, be able to use it for both firewood, and we're going to make a bow drill set out of it. One of the nice things you'll run into, you notice it's very tall, well, very straight. Stands up tall. And we've got a lot of the bark fiber on the outside. Long, stringy stuff we can pull off. So this particular piece of wood is going to end up being a bunch of different things. But this is a saw review, so let's see how it cuts. We're going to go low. Now with this one, usually if you're felling a tree, figure out which way it's leaning. This one's actually pretty straight up and down, but it is leaning that way just a little bit. If it was a bigger tree, I would cut a wedge and then back cut it. This particular one, it's not big enough to worry about that. So, let's see how she goes. That's why you buy a Silky. One of the other things that's really nice with these, it doesn't have a lock keeping it closed, but there's a fair amount of tension. I've never had one come open accidentally, but when they lock, you've got basically a release on the back, but it's a two position. So the first position would be normal cutting, and then a second tips the blade on an up angle. So if you're undercutting something, if you've got a hanging piece of wood like this, and you go from the top, your saw will tend to jam because it's wedging closed. So if we go from underneath, this actually, the way the blade goes, makes it very comfortable. So, let's take some of this stuff out of the way. So we'll go. And you see how it wedges open rather than jamming your blade. That's just how she works. So very, very effective. But as you've seen, I could carry it in my pocket and you don't even know I got it. In addition to being a really effective saw from a cutting standpoint, one of the kind of cool side benefits of the Silky is it makes the back of the spine, when it's closed, makes an amazing scraper. So one thing you're going to want to use a scraper for is your ferro rod. So we've got a ferro rod here. A lot of sparks, so very effective that way. Then, when you're preparing tinder materials, see the dead cedar we have here? So then if you look, in addition, it makes an amazing scraper for processing bark down into tinder material. Go this way. So look at that. Nice, super fine tinder materials, just using the back of your saw. Japanese made. They're actually designed as pruning saws. So more aimed at the gardener than the camper or bushcrafter, but at 8.5 ounces, very, very light for its cutting power. If you notice the teeth, these are the large teeth, and if you notice that they almost look like like dinosaur or crocodile teeth aimed backwards. This saw only cuts pulling, and then it doesn't jam sliding forward. There's some nice flex to the blade, but the secret of the Silky saw is that the kerf, or the teeth, are wider than the spine. So when you get into wood, basically it's cutting a wider channel, so the spine here doesn't bind up. And that's one of the biggest secrets of these. Like if you look in the description below, you'll see our link to Amazon. It's definitely more money than something like the Corona razor tooth saw, about twice as much. But being that when you're going through wood, it just takes less effort because the blade isn't binding above the teeth, because it's ever so slightly tapered to the spine. Really, really smart design. Like I said before, 2 positions, so for undercutting and normal cutting. Very similar in design, if you look them up, to the Silky Gomboys, but this, instead of straight handle, has a curved pistol grip. So when you have a hold of it, when you pull back, it gives you something for your hand to lock against. Right here, you've got a lanyard hole. So if you did want to put a cord that you can put your hand in so you don't drop it accidentally, very easy to do. I haven't done that with any of mine. This is my second Silky saw. My first one I got 3 years ago. It's just starting to get a little bit dull. I snapped the tip off. Well, I didn't. Somebody borrowed it and snapped the tip off. And so what we run into is a very, very ergonomic and smooth cutting saw. If you're doing finer bushcraft tasks, something like the Baco Laplander, which we'll eventually review as well, doesn't cut wood as quickly, but you do run into the thing where it allows for finer cuts. So if you're making traps, shelters, you can do that with this, but for me, predominantly, this is about processing down firewood, and nothing's better. One of the things you'll also use a saw in the woods for is bushcraft tasks. So one of the easy things to do is cutting notches, whether it's making a trap, making a shelter, something like that. So let's see how this does. So we've got a small piece of wood. It's very dry. So we'll cut. So not quite as fine because it's a little more aggressive. Not quite as fine as a Baco Laplander would do, but our nice Camillus Bushcrafter knife. So not too bad of a job as far as cutting a square notch. So whether you're making a figure 4 trap or notching some wood together, making a shelter frame, something along those lines, worked quite well. Whoa.